Hey everyone, good evening. It is Shana Fossum here, financial advisor at Security First Asset Management with your education event. Hey, Investing 101. Hi Wanda. So I'm managing the chat box and the presentation tonight, so I'm going to try to get to questions as we go along, but then I'll also try to make up for it at the end if I miss any. I'm going to go over a couple of upcoming events. So on April 21st, we're going to have our estate planning class. I'm going to go ahead and share this calendar with you. So we have that coming up on April 21st. And then on May 12th, we're going to do our food truck and shred. That's always been a popular one for us and a great way to shred all of your papers you want to get rid of out of your house. Then we have a double ticket at Natalia's. So if you want to invite your friends to that, you can be put in the referral drawing at the end of the year, as well as our quarterly drawings. I'm going to share that with you too. And we really do appreciate all the referrals you guys give us. That's really about 80% of our clients come from you guys, so we appreciate that. And then we have a game night planned. I know how much you guys love to play games, at least the ladies when we do our Valentine's. But this is going to be for everybody. It's a game night, and that's going to be May 26th. And we're going to have some prizes, so you can win some prizes. That'll be lots of fun. Hey, Gay, nice to see you. All right, so I think I shared those items with you. And we're going to go ahead and get started on the presentations. Let me get that set up for us. Okay, so we're going to learn about investments today. Going to go ahead and get started. Obviously, we're not selling any particular anything. This is for educational purposes. Gay and Wanda already know us, but there's three advisors here. We've got Daniel, myself, and Chad, and Daniel is the owner. All right, we're going to get started with retirement savings. Now, what we discovered in a recent study in 2019 is about 45% of Americans have nothing saved for retirement. So I think we're seriously deficient in our retirement savings, especially younger individuals. And the biggest reason that they stated was that they don't make enough money to save. Now, whether that's true or not, I'm not sure. We also have some budgeting and some living within our means issues going on as well. So there's a big deficit for retirement savings. But most employers offer some sort of employer-sponsored retirement plan. The main one that most people are familiar with are 401ks. Tax-exempt and nonprofits have 403bs, and some local school and state systems have 457s. If you're lucky enough to work for the government, then you have the thrift savings plans. And there's also SEPs and Simples for those who are self-employed. The biggest thing that I see that people, the biggest mistake I see people make is they are not getting the maximum employer match. So this is based off of someone who makes $50,000 a year, and they are putting in, let me move my picture so I can see. They're putting in $115 and change each week from age 25 to age 65. Now, it's earning 7%. The employer will match up to 50% of 6% of their pay. So if you look at the column on the left, this person's only contributing 44% of their salary. So that means the employer match is only going to be 2%. And so as they contribute that over, age 25 to 65, that only grows to $661,042. But if they were able to max up and do a 6% contribution, if you look at the right, and the employer makes a 3%, that would grow to $991,563. That's a $330,000 difference that you're leaving on the table by not doing your maximum match to get the main max that your employer will give. And that's huge. That can make a big difference in someone's retirement. So here's the contribution limits for 2022. I'm going to point out in the middle here where it says, I wish I had a pointer. Webinar Jam doesn't do that, but you can see where it says maximum contributions 401k / 403b 457. For 2022, that is $20,500. And if you're over age 50, then you get to do an additional catch up of $6,500. Another one of note is the simple IRA. You could do $14,000 into that. And if you're over 50, you could do an additional $3,000. And down here at the bottom, a traditional IRA, you can only put in $6,000 a year, and the catch-up is $1,000. It pales in comparison to the other retirement plans. Now, there is some legislation called Secure Act 2.0 on the table that might inflate that with inflation. Whether that happens or not is to be seen, but it makes a big difference here. Now, something that you may not realize between a traditional and a Roth IRA is that this $6,000 for each of them does not mean that you can put $6,000 into a traditional and $6,000 into a Roth. That is a combination. So if I put $6,000 into one, I can't add anything to the other. And the catch-up is only $1,000. It's not an additional $7,000. So the total is $7,000. But if you have a SEP IRA, you can do up to 25% of your income for a maximum amount of $61,000. And that would be a great investment vehicle for someone for retirement. All right, so let's talk about the differences between saving and investing. So when I think of saving money, I think of short-term needs. I think of about 3 to 6 months worth of my monthly expenditures in case of an emergency. I'm thinking, maybe it's my Christmas budget, or it's a new appliance budget for my home. Those are things that are kind of more on the short term. Investing are for long-term goals. They don't need to be liquid, and you want it to grow. So that's kind of some differences between the two. And I'm going to illustrate that here in a second. So one of the things that you've got to be careful about is if you have too much money in your savings, is inflation. And that's something we've seen grow exponentially through the pandemic. This scenario on this screen is for 3% inflation. So, that $100 bill is now worth $97. But with the inflation we've been seeing, it's closer to $90. That eats away at your money if it's just sitting in savings. So if you had $100, this is prior to the pandemic in 2019, that $100, that would have been worth $2,614 in 1913. So this is a clear example of how inflation erodes the value of a dollar over time. So we have to think about that when we plan for retirement savings. So that when we do our financial plans, we always inflate it. So that $100 you need today, it needs to be something much greater for 30, 40 years from now. So what should you invest in? Well, over the long haul, stocks do better. So this is average annual return based on all of these elements over here from 1968 to 2017. So the average return for the stock S&P 500 was a little over 10%. Gold came in second with a little over 7%. And of course, the small treasury bills were just a little over 4%. But if you had invested $100 50 years ago into the S&P 500, it'd be worth a little over $10,000. So you can clearly see that the stock market it compounds interest and has more growth than these other options. Not saying these other options shouldn't be utilized in your portfolio, but they have a place, and you need to know where they need to go to make the kind of return you need for your retirement. So here's an example of the difference between saving and investing. So if you look at the left, if I had someone at age 25 investing $5,000 a year at 6% interest for 40 years, with the power of compounding interest, it would be worth $773,816. But if I just had that $5,000 I was socking away in my savings account for 40 years, earning 0.09%, I'd have $203,552. That's vastly different, a vast difference. And so the big difference is compound interest, which we like to call the eighth wonder of the world. And I really, really like this example here on the right. So this has got two investors. They're earning 8% interest that compounds annually, right? So the stock market is, it ebbs and flows. But if it were to have a constant 8% interest rate, this is what this example shows. So the blue girl, investor number one, she starts at age 25. And she's going to put $5,000 into investments for 10 years. So at age 34, she's not going to invest anymore. So she's only invested $50,000, and then she just lets it grow. So compound interest, it needs time to really work its wonder. So if she put in her $50,000 over those 10 years, $5,000 each, quit at age 34, it would grow to $787,180. Now, if you were investor number two, he didn't start to age 35. Okay, he's still going to do the $5,000, but now he has to invest it for 30 years. So where she did the $50,000, and that's 10 years time, now he's going to do $150,000 over 30 years. And he still comes out with much less, $611,730. That's, like what, $170,000 difference, but also he put in 3 times the amount of money. So compound interest is a great vehicle for investments, but it's best if it's utilized at a younger age. So let's talk about some different investments that you can invest in. So most people know what stocks are. It's a company letting you become part owner of their company by selling shares of their business, right? And there's 2 ways that you as a stockholder can make money. So you can make money off of the dividends, that the profits that the company receives, they pay you a little dividend, or you can trade them onto the stock market and sell them. So if you buy the stock, at a lower price, you're able to sell it at a higher price. That's another way you can make money. Now, bonds are a different animal. Okay, so bonds have a par rate. That's what we call par rate, is the value that they have at maturity. So a regular bond is $1,000 par rate. And so there's different types of bonds. There's corporate bonds, there's municipal bonds, and they have a coupon rate. And so they pay you the coupon rate, and then when it matures, they pay you the par rate, $1,000. But the problem is that bonds work inversely with interest rates. So we've been in a low interest rate environment. So bonds have been selling at what we call a premium. They've been selling for more than par. So if par is $1,000 and you're buying at a premium, that $1,000 bond you're paying maybe $1,300 for, okay? And you might be earning like a 2% coupon. Well, as they raise the interest rates, let's say they raise it to 4%, that $1,300 bond may be selling for $900 and earning a 4% coupon. So why would you want to have the $1,300 bond that's only paying 2% if you could have it at a discount, earning more? So if you own bonds and then the interest rates rise, you lose money. So there are alternatives to bonds, because this is going to be a really poor season to be a bond owner right now. And as I mentioned, there's different kinds of bonds. There's corporates and institutional and investments and municipalities ones, and they can be purchased from us or from elsewhere. All right, so another type of investment are annuities. Now, annuities, most people don't realize, are actually insurance products, and that's because they offer certain principal protection. Now, depending on what kind of annuity it is, some of them have more protection than others, but regardless, they are either an immediate annuity or they are a deferred annuity. So you could have a fixed immediate annuity, or you could have a fixed deferred annuity. An immediate annuity means that you're wanting to receive a payout within 1 year. So it's funded by a large lump sum, and you expect to start receiving an income stream within a year. So that would what would an immediate annuity be? A deferred annuity would mean that you're expecting this income stream a long time away. It's not anytime soon. It's a future date. It's beyond a year, and the money can grow inside it until you choose to turn on the income or put it into a different annuity. So let's talk about the difference between fixed and fixed index annuities, and then variable annuities. So a fixed annuity, it has a fixed rate, a fixed guaranteed rate. So it might be 1 or 2%, but that means that you will get that every year, 1 or 2% on that fixed annuity. So principal protected, you can never lose the money, and it'll always go up that fixed amount that they stated they would in the contract. A fixed indexed annuity, it means that you can invest your money in different allocations of different indexes, okay? Now, that could be the S&P 500. It could be some sort of dynamic blend. And if the index rises, then you get to participate in some of those gains. Now, a fixed index annuity can have participation rates, and they can have caps. So let's say that it had a participation rate of 80%. That means whatever the growth was on that index, you get to participate in 80% of that growth. So let's say it had a cap and a participation rate. So let's say that, you could participate in 100% of the growth, but it's capped at 4%. So if it grew to be, the index grew by 6%, you'd be capped at 4, and you would be credited with a 4% growth. But let's say that instead of growing, that the index declined, okay? You would just earn a 0. So you would just, you maybe had a gain last year, this year's a 0, so you just scoot across. You never lose the principal below that. And then if it gains more, then you go up. I like to look at it, it kind of looks like a staircase. Okay, you can earn a 0 in a fixed index annuity, but you can never lose your principal. Now, variable annuity, you still have options for investments, and sometimes there's more so than the indexes offered in a fixed indexed annuity. But with these, you do have the potential where you could lose money. We don't sell a lot of them. The ones we usually do recommend have buffers. And so the way a buffer works is like you might have a 20% buffer. So let's say that index is down 15%. You still have not lost any money. You'll get a 0 that year. If it's down 21%, then you're down 1%. So we try to have variable annuities that have lower fees, and they have buffers. So this is usually kind of an intermediate investment. It's not as safe as your fixed or fixed indexed annuity, but it allows for some growth with some downside protection that you don't have in stocks. So we utilize those in a lot of our clients' investments. So this kind of shows you some of the risk levels in annuities. And while fixed indexed annuities, they don't have principal protection, principal risk there. You're not going to lose your seed, your principal. You're going to keep that. But I would say that fixed annuities, they tend to have very low fixed rates. So I would say the risk to those would be inflation. So you need to weigh your pros and cons, figure out what works best for you, your plan and specifics, and what kind of risk level you are and what you need your money to be doing for you as to how it needs to be invested. And that's obviously where we help you figure that out. But another thing we utilize are exchange traded funds. And so exchange traded funds are kind of similar to, oops, I thought I was going to go past that for a second. They're kind of similar and different to mutual funds. Similar in the fact, that it has like a bucket of securities or an index or things inside it that it tracks. Whereas, mutual fund actually has those holdings, but it tracks the index. The difference is that, these are easily on the stock market exchange, and they trade like a stock, whereas a mutual fund, it sells at net asset value at the end of day. So that's a little bit different. ETFs also have lower fees. They're passively managed. A lot of them even have 0 fees. So it makes a great alternative to a mutual fund. What most people don't realize is that there are load fees and inside management fees inside a mutual fund. In fact, the average annual expense for a mutual fund is 1.42% per fund. So that can add up to quite a bit. Now, there are some low fees or lower feed mutual funds, but most people don't see those fees, so they don't realize they're in there unless they look them up. But because they track an index, you don't own the underlying holdings. So like we have, like a gold ETF or precious metals, ETF. And so it tracks the movement of it. We also use them to help buffer against losses. Like some of them will follow the moving day average. If things are trending down, parts of it will move to cash. And so that way, when we have our managed accounts, much like that variable annuity with that buffer, we utilize ETFs to help create a buffer-like experience inside your portfolio account. And they're much easier to trade on than mutual funds and with less fees. All right, so ETFs are created and then they are sold, and then we're able to buy and sell them easily. All All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about Roth IRAs, converting a regular IRA to a Roth, and then inherited IRAs. So Roth IRAs are great vehicles to invest in large part because they are tax-free. The growth on them is tax-free. So as long as you have working wages, you can open up a Roth account and then you contribute your after-tax money. The money grows tax-free, and then you can withdraw it tax-free in retirement. You're not required to have required minimum distributions at all. There are income limits for those. So if you're married filing joint, if you earn less than $204,000, you can put the max into it. If you're between 204 and 214, then you'll have a reduced amount that you could put in it. Anything above the $214,000 for married filing joint, you can't even contribute to a Roth. But if you're single, the limits, you have to make less than $129,000, then you can do the 6. If it's between 129 and 144, then you'll have a reduced amount. Anything above that, then you're not going to be able to put it in the Roth either. But it is a great investment vehicle for that reason, is that it's not taxed but just once. So the traditional IRA, you have the tax break now, right? But then Uncle Sam's your partner for the rest of it. And I saw some people, actually I've seen 2 people within the last 2 weeks that had large, substantial 401ks, and they have sufficient income in retirement with their pensions that they aren't going to have to touch this 401k money. And they're going to have to take, and I showed them on the software, $200,000 RMDs, $400,000 RMDs, that, is ordinary income. And that's not okay. And you need to think also about your heirs and what the complications of that are. And that leads us into the next one coming up after conversions here. So one of the things that we do recommend, if you are able to, is to start some Roth conversions. And when I say able to, I mean, you need to not be able to take the money out, within 5 years, because there's a 5-year rule of distributing, taking the money out. If you take it out before then, it's, a 10% penalty. If you're over age 59 and a half, that's not necessarily the case, but we try to look at your tax bracket, and we try to see, okay, well, this is how much I'm making, and there's this cushion, and I'm still in the same tax bracket. How much can I start converting now into Roth money so that I won't have such large RMDs as I age, and I won't have to add all that ordinary income back onto my current income. Now, if you're already RMD age or thinking, about it when you are RMD age, you can't make a conversion of your required minimum distribution. You would have to take an amount over and above that in order to do that. And so that's just not an ideal situation. But once it's converted, it is tax-free. So that's a great thing. Now, back to inherited IRAs, one of the risks that we talked about is, since the Secure Act, it changed the rules for beneficiaries. So for a Roth, an inherited Roth, it still has to be depleted within 10 years, but it is not taxed to the beneficiary. So it is still the better option. But if you have a traditional IRA or a 401k and your beneficiary receives that, there are different rules now. They used to be that you could stretch it over the beneficiary's lifetime. And so it was a much smaller amount of money that they had to take out as required minimum distributions. So there's three types of beneficiaries. There's your eligible designated beneficiary, there's your non-eligible designated beneficiary, and then a non-designated beneficiary. So your eligible designated beneficiary is like your spouse or a minor child, someone who's disabled or chronically ill, who's not more than 10 years younger than the person that passed away. Now, the surviving spouse, they can roll over that IRA and make it their own. And so that's helpful because then it's based off of their life. So that's still a good thing for your surviving spouse. The minors, that benefit only works until they become of age, and then the 10-year rule applies. So the non-eligible designated beneficiary would be a non-spouse, certain trust and successor beneficiaries, and they would have to take it out within 10 years. And then your non-designated beneficiaries would be like estates or charities or different types of trust. Now, the problem with this is, let's say I had a $1 million 401k or IRA, and my beneficiary is my son who makes $150,000 a year. Well, he has to take that out over 10 years. So that means he has to take $100,000 worth of income and plop it onto his current $150,000. And that's going to jack up his taxes, something fierce. So you need to be thinking about that. If this is how your plan works, if you're going to end up having a lot to go to your heirs, you need to think of a better way to get it to them and not in Uncle Sam's pocket. All right, on to the next thing, insurance. Insurance is often underthought of, or not really given the thought that it should. Now, most people think about term insurance, especially when they're young, which is great. It is an inexpensive way to take care of your family, but they're unsure of how much is enough. And so we're going to talk about that in a minute. Now, disability insurance is probably the least thought about insurance that is needed, but this will help cover essential expenses like food, utilities, your mortgage, car payments, things like that, if you were to become disabled. And the third one is overfunded universal life. And this is a type of permanent life insurance, kind of like whole life, but it's variable. So you can have flexible premiums, and it allows you to put extra cash into the sub accounts, kind of like a 401k or / mutual funds. We're going to talk about that because that one's kind of an interesting one that most people don't know about. All right, so term insurance. How do you figure out how much do you need? Well, I like to use the DIME formula. So that stands for debt, income, mortgage, and education. So the first thing is figure out how much debt you have outside of your mortgage, credit cards, student loans, car payments. Okay, add up all your debts and then figure in some funeral expenses. Okay, that goes under the debt portion. Your income. Okay, how much do you make? How long do you want to provide this income for your family? Okay, multiply that together, and that gives you how much income you would like to provide for your family. And then I want you to look at your mortgage. Your mortgage, do you have more than one mortgage? Do you have, a home equity line of credit? Okay, find out how much the payoffs are, add those together, and that goes in that section. And then if you're going to pay for your kids' college education, we recommend suggesting between $100,000 to $150,000 per kid. I think that's kind of high, but that's what's recommended. Then you add all of that together, and then you subtract out any savings you might have or any other life policies you might have. And that gives you a good guesstimate of how much term insurance you should have for your family. Now, disability insurance. This one, most people don't think about, but there is no age where the risk of death is more than becoming disabled. I'm going to say that again. There's no age where the risk of dying is more than being disabled. You're more likely to get disabled than dying in every year. In fact, 1 in 7 adults will be disabled for 5 years. That's pretty high. So having some sort of disability insurance, especially if you're young, especially if you have a young family, it is a crucial element to any sort of financial plan. Okay, here's the fun one. Overfunded life and universal life. Okay, so most people think about this as a life insurance policy, and that is great because it gives a death benefit, but it can also be a really neat investment vehicle. And I'm going to explain it a little bit more. Let me move my picture again. All right, so this is a tax-free account growth, okay, because the cash value in a permanent life insurance policy is generally not taxed, okay? So that's a good thing. And the benefits go to your heirs tax-free as well. The second pro is the investment flexibility. So they have lots of different investing policies that you can do. Some of them are, have different stock market indexes. Some are kind of work almost like an ETF. They monitor those like an S&P 500 and things like that. Some are a little more conservative. They have, some fixed rate options. The third pro is much like annuities. You're protected from the volatility of the market, okay? So you might earn a zero, but you're not going to have any principal loss. So that's a great pro. The fourth pro is there's no annual caps, no yearly caps. Remember when I was talking about annuities or indexed annuities, they might have a cap on how much you can earn. Hey, there's no yearly caps on those. When you're overfunding a life insurance policy, you don't have to worry about, well, I should say, the government doesn't place a cap on there. The plan might have a cap. But you can contribute. They don't cap how much you can contribute. Let me back that. There are certain amounts you can contribute without becoming a MEC, which I'll talk about later. But for the most part, you can overfund it by large sums of money, okay? Pro number 5, when you have an overfunded life insurance policy, you can withdraw the funds at any age without incurring government penalties. So like, if you have an IRA, if you're younger than 59 and a half, you can't take money out unless it's for specific reasons without being hit with a penalty. But you can do this from an overfunded universal life policy. And you can also take loans out. So who's a good candidate for this? Usually people with individuals of high net worth, they've already maxed out their 401ks, and they want to be able to put more money into something. There are actually special policies for super high, well, I shouldn't say super, but fairly high income earners that can also be bank leveraged. So that means that the bank is matching whatever you put in, and then it grows even faster. And it's a great way to create almost like a pension for yourself. You do have to have certain health, got to pass the health exam since it is life insurance. And you've got to make sure you don't contribute too much so it doesn't become a MEC. But this is also a good option for people who are maybe a little bit older before they start saving, because it allows them to put in a lot more money into it than obviously like an IRA that you can only put in $6,000 a year. So it's a great vehicle for that kind of investing. And for early access, let's say you want to take them out early, like I mentioned earlier, it's a great, that's something that you need to be doing, then this would be a good option for you. And the tax benefits, because it's not taxed. So that's a great benefit there. So like I said, whether you should do the overfunded life insurance policy, that totally depends on your specific situation. And also, while the IRS doesn't say annual caps on funding, there are still federal limits to how much you can contribute to the cash plan. If you contribute over that, the policy becomes a modified endowment contract or a MEC. And once it has become one, it cannot be reverted back, and then it is taxable. But we understand how that works, and we wouldn't have you overfund it. So it is a great investment vehicle for some people. And that kind of wraps things up. Do you guys have any questions for me? I'm going to go ahead and share this presentation if you guys want to have that for later. So if we don't have any questions, then it looks like we might be wrapping this up. Oh, I see one. Oh, you're welcome. Well, if you guys have any questions later on, you feel free to shoot us an email or give us a call. We'd be happy to answer any further questions you might have about anything we talked about tonight. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing you at either the estate planning or the food truck or our game night. I'm looking forward to the game night. It's because I love games. All right, well, I will see you guys next time. See you later.